Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah, and I'm a senior researcher at the University of Antwerp. And today I'll tell you about the vaginal microbiome. I had lovely introductions about women's health, about the microbiome, about all kinds of topics that are taboo. And I'm going to go a little bit deeper on one of them. So I don't have to tell you that we're here today to talk about something that hasn't been researched enough and barely. But it's also really important in the fact that up to almost 80% of women have issues regarding to recurrent infections, but also fertility, pregnant complications, and so on. And it hasn't been researched enough, and we don't know why. But I also don't want to make this like a pink revolution, like women for women. No, it really has an impact also on children. If the vaginal microbiome is not balanced, it can be related to preterm birth, neonatal infections, and even further, not just women and children, but also men. Men are also impacted by this. So this is a non-pink revolution. It impacts everyone. And we like to call it our third genome. But then the gut, the second genome, because, it's still 100% of people that have a gut. But nevertheless, what we have realized is a lot of research has been happening together with hospitals, which is very relevant. But then we don't know what just a general healthy vaginal microbiome is if we always study women that have a complication. And if you don't know what health is, then how can you better understand what disease is? So besides just knowing what the microbiome is, we study also the mechanisms of what they do and how they function. We also know that there is no animal model actually for the vagina. There is no anatomical vagina that looks the same as humans, but also there is no animal that has a similar microbiome as the vaginas that humans have. We are, by the way, studying the vaginal microbiome of bonobos, which are close relatives, and they don't have the same vaginal microbiome. Paper to be published. So, we've decided to go for the citizen science approach to reach a broad range of women and help them contribute to our science. So they don't just ask questions, but they also help with data collections, they give input, and we published on this, on why citizen science is very relevant. But I'm going to go immediately to our example, which is the Isella project. The Isella project is named after Isella van Diest, the first female physician in Belgium. She was not allowed to study medicine. So she had to go to Switzerland, she studied medicine there, came back to Belgium, and then they told her, you're not allowed to be a medical professional. So then she went to the UK, and then she came back, and then she changed the law. So she's a role model, and we named our project after her. So what is unique about our Isella project is we have lots of scientific goals. So our general goal is we want to map the vaginal microbiome of women and healthy women, just general all over the world. But we also want to study the impact of lifestyle and environmental factors on the microbiome. We also want to study the beneficial capacities of lactobacilli. So we have a large database with all kinds of live bacteria that we study in our labs. But what is unique about our project is that we also have societal goals. We want to break the taboo on women's health. We want to talk about intimate topics. We want to also join the multidisciplinary research on this topic. It's not just the microbiome like we've been taught before. It's also pain, it's also taboo, it's also culture. And we want to also bring women in science more into the picture. So we do this with all kinds of science communication tools. We try to use a lot of infographics, social media, all kinds of blogs, not just a boring white paper, informed consent. We launched in March 2020, and we were looking for 200 participants. And people told us, no one's really going to take a vaginal swab, it's kind of gross. And we thought, maybe we as researchers just think this is cool and nobody else thinks this is cool. And then actually within 10 days, more than 6,000 women registered. And they were sending us messages like, finally a project about us, finally about us. It was really nice to hear. And then they kind of give us the groove to continue, even though we didn't have the funding because... So we published on this, and for those who know Belgium, it's close to France, obviously. But we started with the top part of Belgium, which is the Flemish-speaking part. And as you can see, we got women all over Belgium, from the large cities and to the smallest towns, to participate and take a vaginal swab at home and send it to the lab. What I just want to say about this slide is that our oldest participant was 98 years old. she was in a retirement home, and her granddaughters participated, and then we helped a lot and had to call with her to help her fill out the survey. But the first question is, what are these bacteria living in the in the vagina? And we know about lactobacilli, but we didn't know how prevalent they were in the general women. So these are two graphs that kind of shows the same. The first one shows actually each line is a participant. And if you think, you're like, ooh, like it's kind of screwed up, this graph, because you see so many colors of the same. But actually that means that a lot of women are just dominated fully by one type of bacteria. If you look at the pie chart, that just kind of gives an overview of how many women were dominated by bacteria. And you see like the blue part is Lactobacillus crispatus, which is associated to health mostly, and most women are dominated by it. But you also have Lactobacillus iners, which we don't know yet. Sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be less. And there are all kinds of other bacteria. Now, the question was, how healthy are our vaginas? Well, fairly healthy based, if we compare to studies that were only done with hospitals and just women that just went to the gynecologist in the hospital. But if everybody here in the room knows who goes to the hospital for just a checkup. So we found that around the women were dominated by around 80% with lactobacilli. And we found that these bacteria work together. It's not just one bacterium, they work together, they help each other. It's like if you look at a forest, it's not just all the species work together to keep a healthy forest. We communicate our results, not just in boring papers. So on our websites, we give more context on the microbiome. Everybody gets their profile, but we explain, we bring nuance. So these are, for example, the bacteria. This is an example of what is Lactobacillus crispatus, where can you find it, what does it do, and so on. So we try to also have a web page for medical professionals because, as we've heard before from Professor, that indeed not a lot of gynecologists know so much about the microbiome. I've even heard one tell me that they don't believe in the microbiome. But what I think is really nice is we started in 2020 and we're now in almost 15 countries, over 5 continents. And how it happened, it was just us giving a talk, and then researchers came up to us and they were like, oh, we also want to study the vaginal microbiome in my country. And we're like, okay, cool. So let's share, we wanted to share our protocols, we wanted to help them as much as possible. And now we're also in Cameroon, in Nigeria, in Singapore, and some are setting up and some are just collaborating with each other. So it's really exciting, if you can see here in the picture. I think one example is here on top, Leke. So they're also named after their own role model. So Leke is in Cameroon, and Josiane had to talk with the chief of the tribe to get permission to talk with the women there and take samples. We have Dora in Nigeria, Laura in Peru. In Peru, we study in the Amazon, in the coast and highlands. And for the Amazon, you really have to take a boat to get there. So the women have never. So it's really nice. And it's always done by researchers there, just not Eurocentric researchers going there white and say, oh, I'm going to study you, take all your microbes. So we published on this, and we found also, and we're still studying, that the microbiome is different in different countries because it's influenced by different aspects. So our question is, what are the things that have an impact on the microbiome? So this is a boring chart that we published, but I go into a bit in detail. For Misala, women filled out a survey. It took 45 minutes, but thousands of women filled it out. So that says a lot about excitement, because who fills out an hour-long survey about their mental health, their physical health, and so on? We saw that being pregnant has an impact on your microbiome, even if it doesn't end in a birth. So just having been pregnant, so we really saw a difference between women who have never been pregnant and those who have been. Also, if you look at age, as a woman ages, especially after menopause, the hormonal fluctuations also change, but the microbiome becomes more diverse, making them more prone for infections. We also saw an impact for hormones. So throughout the menstrual cycle, the microbiome also follows a little bit the hormonal fluctuations. Also, the contraceptive pill, people were really interested in that. It was really a topic in Belgium. Women were asking us, what is the impact of diet? And we were like, diet? But yeah, what's the link with diet? We never really thought of it because we were always learned to be gastrointestinal system, reproductive system, all different, but actually they're linked. So we saw that some foods had an impact, but that's association. So we're doing more studies into causation. So maybe there is a gut-vagina axis. Where is it maybe? There are all kinds of theories, the perineum outside or absorption into the gut that maybe kind of links your immune system and your vaginal microbiome, all kinds of theories because it haven't been done before. So it's all kind of new. And we also communicate these results to the public. But it's important to know that we found actually we can only explain 10% of the vagina. But for the gut, I can only explain 7%, so that's more. Now, it's always important to realize how can we be more inclusive and not just do research on the rich white, but on everyone. So we wanted to study and we do focus groups with all kinds of people, like why would you participate in studies, what is important to you? We realized that awareness is important, but also the language, the type of language that you use, what you say, what your message is, trust, who do I trust? Not everybody trusts scientists. Sometimes we trust our GP or gynecologist or pharmacist. Taboo. Sometimes we think a group is full of taboo, but they're so open. Like we were so surprised by it, and to be subtle. So we are having all kinds of new phases of projects, and the one that also is running right now during Ramadan is a Rufaida project, where we're studying the impact of fasting and food on the vaginal and gut microbiome, because 1 billion women in the world are Muslim, and they're fasting 1 month a year, and it hasn't been studied before. So that's kind of crazy if you think about it. And there are all kind of theories that because in the gut we have all kinds of bacterial fermentations, and there are also all kinds of diets coming out. Who has a friend that is doing intermittent fasting or starting intermittent fasting or thinking of keto diet? See a lot of people nodding. So it's not just what we eat, when we eat it, and how does it impact our gut and vagina, and we're studying it right now. So women are taking samples before Ramadan, during Ramadan, after Ramadan, so it's right now Ramadan, and I'm also participating in my own study. And last year we studied it just by taking surveys, and we already found that the women experience less stress during Ramadan and more community, so I'm curious to see this impact also on the microbiota. And then to end with, last year we also asked women to send a picture of their iftar table. It was actually a contest, and then these 3 tables, 1 of the 30. So it's also really a community-based research. It's not just about send us your samples. It's about more than that. So maybe next year I can tell you more about the results. But for now, I want to thank the entire team working on this, just in Belgium, but also international or collaborators. And thank you everyone for your attention.